Hey guys, so I wanted to come on here and I guess you could say do a bit of a review, updated review, whatever you want to call it, on Yu-Gi-Oh! Bonds Beyond Time. Now I know I did a response to Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything's video that he did a couple years ago where he talked about basically, you know, the timeline and everything, and how, where he feels the movie kind of falls into when it comes to each of the original trilogy of series. And I did my own version on it as well. I did not my own version, but I did my reply on it the other day. And I do apologize if I'm looking down this way and everything. I'm watching security camera because my mom's home, and kind of make sure she doesn't interrupt. And also the fact that I got the Chiefs and Steelers on right now as well. But anyway, I felt that, because I was thinking about it too, why not do a review as well, at least an updated review on it. And, here's the thing. The reason I decided I wanted to do this is because I've been watching this lately. I've been getting, like I said, I've been getting back in, getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh! A little bit. I mean, basically, I've never left the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan base, or the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fandom, if you will. It's just, it's always been there. I just haven't really been paying too much attention to it like I should, and just suddenly I decided to look into it again. And, with doing so, I decided to watch this. And I'll be honest, and I think it was also helped by the fact that I saw some recommendations on my YouTube channel. When I go to YouTube, I get some recommendations. So I started, like I said, I started to give, pay more attention to it than I used to. I started to pay more attention to it than before, like I used to in the past. And like I said, part of that was watching this movie. And this movie is, I'll tell you this. This movie is very, very good because of the fact that not only does it celebrate the 10th anniversary of the franchise, but it tells a really good story that, depending on how you feel about where you speculate it falls in each of the timelines of the original trilogy, that if you put that aside, the overall story is really good. I mean, in actuality, what it is a 5Ds movie, since 5Ds was the third show after that, after GX and everything. And so, and it all basically stays within the same continuity as the original. The storyline, I'll tell you like this right now. The storyline is, like I said, really good. Basically, it centers around this time traveler, this psychotic time traveler, kind of like who is not all there, if you will. But basically, he wants his mission, and his name is Paradox, as we find out later on in the film. But his mission in life is to destroy the Duel Monster games, because of the fact that he believes, if not blames, Duel Monsters, the Duel Monsters game, for destroying his future, destroying and killing the ones he loves and cares for. So instead of basically figuring out, okay, what really destroyed his future, he decides to go after the one thing he felt probably is the biggest culprit. And he uses this mask that he, calls a filter, that showed him the truth as to, what could have caused his future to be in such desolate, if you will. Very similar to the Silver story arc that was adapted in Archie Comics, if you will. It's very similar to the Silver story arc that was loosely adapted into the Archie Sonic comics, where Silver would go around and try to find the culprit who he felt was responsible for his future being in such a state that it was, that he would target and put accusations on Sonic, Rotor, Antoine, you name it, until finally he finds out that the one that caused it was, a traitor, but an unwilling traitor, and that was Sally. because he found out that the reason Sally was an unwilling traitor is she sacrificed herself to save the planet. So Paradox's storyline is kind of similar to that, in a way, except he doesn't do what Silver does. He doesn't look at other possibilities as to what happened to his future. He just goes with the conclusion in his mind that it was Duel Monsters. It was the Duel Monsters game. So his plan basically is to go to the beginning, basically go to a certain part in time during the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters series, and basically take out Pegasus. Because if you take out Pegasus, then the Duel Monsters game ceases to be. Like any future incarnations, any future cards that get developed in different variations of the games that could be created and made into a new playable way to duel, all cease to be. They all just go to the wayside. They basically act like they never were. They were a never be and never will be kind of deal. And we see the result of this in the movie, because basically the movie starts out with him confronting Jaden Yuki from GX, and before we go to the 5D's timeline, we see that he's pulled out the Stardust Dragon to try to finish off Jaden. So what happens is we go to the 5D timeline, and Yusei Hulu, I think that I'm just going to call him Yusei. He wakes up from having this reoccurring dream or nightmare, if you will, that takes him back to when his father's experiments, if you will, put New Domino City in such a conundrum, a conundrum, if you will, that even though things are pretty much fine, if you will, they're pretty much fine and everything now, which again goes into what my theory is of this takes place before the final episode 5Ds, that even though New Domino City is kind of survived it, rebuilt itself and all that, he still feels a little guilty over that. Like basically he says in his own mind that maybe someday he'll be able to forgive his father for basically his mind process is after his friends come to talk to him and kind of cheer him up a little bit by saying, hey, I know we'll help you cheer up, and they toss him his helmet and they take a ride and all that on the duelist riders, on the duel riders, if you will. Basically, he said while he's riding along with his friends, he says to himself that maybe someday he can forgive what's happened in the past because of his father, but that day is not today, because he still feels a responsibility to protecting New Domino City. Anyway, this is when they first encounter, or at least Jaden and his friends, Jackson, I think. I can't think of the other guy's name right now off the top of my head. You guys could probably tell me in the in the comments in the live chat. Basically, long story short, like I said, basically this is when Yusei and his friends encounter Paradox on his dual rider for the first time, and obviously for those of us that have never watched 5Ds, you kind of get an idea of how duels are done with the dual riders or dual cycles and all that. How basically you flash the front lights, if you will, and it kind of tells you, hey, I want to challenge you to a duel kind of deal. So basically is Paradox issues the challenge, Yusei and his friends accept, and what happens is, when it looks like the duel's about to be over and he synchro summons Stardust Dragon, basically that's when we see a different kind of card get pulled out, and it's a blank card, obviously from the future, because Paradox is from the future. I don't know how far into the future from 5Ds, but he's from the future, obviously to the point that you could create a dual card that could basically steal another duelist's dual card. And that's what happens. He uses a blank card, ends up stealing the Stardust Dragon away from Yusei. And Yusei, he looks at the card afterwards and sees that it still has like the attack points and defense points, but it's completely blank in the middle. It's like it's like you got the black background, but you don't have the image of Stardust. And Yusei, he wants to know who this guy is because they're all surprised that this happened. And Paradox basically says that all things are possible with time travel or whatever. So, and he ends up going into the GX timeline. He ends up going back into basically the GX timeline, as they text up there. He goes back into the GX timeline and to do his battle with Jaden. So what happens is later on they're still trying to figure out what happened. Akiza, Luna and Leo show up, and they kind of show him what they discovered when they were researching duel monsters on the internet. And at first they're thinking, well, why did you want to show us this image of this archive image of Pegasus along with Yugi after the Domino City tournament? And Akiza says, that's not what we want to show you. Turn to the next page, and when they do, they see this archive article of stating that all these dragons one day just appeared and blasted all of Europe, and in the center of that image is Stardust, which really throws them off. And they're like, wait a minute, how can that be? That wasn't around then. And Luna and Leo and Akiza basically point out, well, that's just it. That's the point we're trying to make. This is new history that's suddenly just been made, just came out of nowhere. And when Jaden's looking at this, he zooms in. Basically, he taps on the picture. He goes like this, and he sees in the background of it Paradox. He sees Paradox in the background. He sees Paradox in the background of the article, and all of a sudden, after he notices this, that's when things start to fall apart around them, and they walk outside and they notice that New Domino City is disintegrating. It's disappearing, vanishing, if you will. And then that's when they put and that's when they kind of all put two and two together, because Jack's the one that's like, maybe it's me, but maybe because I've watched too many movies, but isn't because basically what he's pointing out from his experience of watching too many movies maybe is that if something changes in the past, doesn't it change the future? And again, that's when that's when Yusei kind of puts two and two together and realizes what Paradox told him is true, that because of the fact that things are changing in the past, it's changing the future. And what happens after this, they have this revelation. All of a sudden, all their crimson dragon marks start to glow. Jack's, that one guy, I can't think of his name right now, Akiza's, Leo's, Luna's, and then on the back of Yusei, his jacket, they all light up. It's like Yusei's lights up, Akiza's, Luna's, Jack's, the other guy, I don't know, I don't think Leo's had one, but then they all kind of light up, and then you see the Crimson Dragon mark on the back of Leo's jacket, and then all of a sudden you start seeing that same energy emanate from Yusei's Duel Runner, as they call it. That's not Duel Rider, but Duel Runner. And Yusei runs to it. Akiza's wondering what is he doing, and he says, I'm not sure, but it's calling to me, so I gotta listen to it, right? So he takes off on his Duel Rider, and what the Crimson Dragon does is it basically opens up a time portal, allowing him to travel back in time to where he needs to go. And where he goes is right in the middle of the confrontation between Jaden and Paradox. And Paradox is about to basically finish off Jaden because he hits him once with Stardust Dragon, and literally it blows Jaden right across the field, if you will, or the grounds of wherever they are in Europe, Venice, Italy, whatever. And basically what happens is that when it looks like he's about to finish Jaden off, even though Neos is trying to protect him, that's when the Crimson Dragon shows up, blocks the attack or prevents it from happening. And Paradox is surprised, like, wait a minute, how did you? Because at first he's wondering, well, okay, what is this? And then he sees Yusei, and he says, and he's basically like, how, and he's wondering, how did you follow me back in time? But then he just decides, you know what, it don't matter, because if you guys don't die at my hands, or we get destroyed at my hands, and then the hands of time will do it. So he ends up now going on his dual runner and traveling into the timeline or into the past where the Dual Monster series is, where Yugimoto is and all that. And Yusei and Jaden, they get to know each other. Yusei, not Yusei, but Jaden finds out from Yubel and Baron that Yusei has the same gift he does, and that's a connection to Dual Monsters, and Yusei shows him the mark on his arm. And then that's when Yusei also kind of asks what's happened, and then after finding out how Jaden came in contact with Paradox, that's when basically Yusei explains what's happening, asks for Jaden to help him out, which Jaden is all for doing. And like I said, after he explains to him what's going on, Jaden at first is a little skeptical, but until he pulls it up on his laptop, and then he sees exactly what Yusei is saying. And then as he sees this, he looks up he holds up his Neos card, and Neos, just like Stardust, disappears. It goes blank, and that basically the same thing that happened was currently happening to Yusei's timeline starts to happen in Jaden's. So they end up going, courtesy of the Crimson Dragon, courtesy of the Crimson Dragon empowering Yusei's dual runner. They end up going to the past, meeting up with Yugi, because what happens is just before they end up going into the past, that's when Paradox unleashes his plan to take out Pegasus as soon as Pegasus gets there, by using all the dragons from the future to do so. And what happens is Pegasus has part of a building fall on him. Yusei's, not Yusei, but Yugi's grandfather gets killed. But then, as it looks like Paradox has won, he's walking off, and you see the dragons just circling around like vultures looking for any kind of, kind of meat kind of deal to snack on. That's when the Crimson Dragon shows up, and basically swallows up Yugi, and then spits him out literally, as they go back in time about 30 minutes or so before anything happens. About 30 minutes before the events that took place, the way they did occur. So basically they go back in time, and they go back in time literally a half hour before I guess Yugi and his grandfather show up and everything, and a half hour before Pegasus shows up. And what happens is, they explain to Yugi who they are. They explain exactly what's going on and everything. And Yugi, because, of course, he's been through a lot, because of his connection with the Pharaoh, and what he's gone through, not only believes them, but, agrees to team up with them to prevent this from happening. And it looks like they're about to do that because, after they agree to team up, you see Yubel shoot a beam to the stage area to kind of scare people off. And, they're thinking, okay, maybe this might help a little bit. But then that's when Paradox shows up, and basically, introduces himself to them, takes off the mask, introduces himself to them, and not only does he introduce himself to them, but he explains why he's doing this, to try to get them to understand that, hey, this game that you like playing, this game that's helped you, save the world countless times, it's not as innocent as you think it is. And you have, in contrast, you have Yugi, Yusei, and Jaden trying to explain to him, yeah, look, it may, it's done more good than bad. Like basically they're saying, yeah, there were some bad things that came of it, but mostly, there's been a lot of good. And so Paradox feels like, okay, if I can't convince you by talking to you and explaining why this is happening, I'll just duel you. And that's what happens. So we end up getting the duel, and I have to say it's one of the best duels that they've done, maybe across all three series. Because, not only because here you have Paradox, he's this one person with life points. And I think for one of the few times, in the show's history, or in the franchise's history, you have three duelists on the other side with a single life point, not separate ones like we've seen a couple of times, but basically with their own, not their own, but basically the life point is one. Basically, if Yusei loses some life points, it doesn't just affect him; it affects Yugi and Jaden. So we see them basically, get ready to duel. We see them bring out the connections with the spirit. Jaden with Yubel, Yusei with the Crimson Dragon, of course. Atem coming in to take over for Yugi. And again, like I said, the duel is great. It's absolutely great because you get all the well-renowned monsters in between. From the three main protagonists. You get Neos. You get Yubel, of course. You get Jump Gardner. You get a new fusion between Jump Gardner and Neos. Basically, the first time in story that two cards from different timelines would be able to do that. You get Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl, who surprisingly I think this would throw anybody off. But again, I'm assuming it takes place before Dawn of the Duel. That she ends up talking. Yeah, she and Dark Magician end up talking, so that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool, and I love her attitude. She's like, when they get ready to do an attack, she's like, yeah, time to kick some butt, But anyway, like I said, the duel goes as planned, as pretty much predicted. Well, the duel basically goes in a way to where it's like very back and forth. Paradox, of course, I will say this about him. It's like the moment he takes off his mask and he speaks without it, it's like, I don't know what it is, but they seem to give guys like him a very pompous like attitude to where, when he does kind of like, really crack and lose it, you start seeing it, but it's like, sometimes when he'll speak, it's like, oh, I would do this and I would do that. It's like, seriously, and you're thinking to yourself, seriously, the guy that's trying to ruin the Duel Monsters game is just another pompous person like, what's his name, Siegfried from KC Grand Prix, and for a bit Pegasus, at the beginning of the show. It's like this is the guy, is this the guy that's trying to do this stuff, trying to ruin everything. But anyway, what happens is, like I said, is the duel goes on as commences as expected, and like I said, it's back and forth. Paradox definitely proves to be a big challenge. He ends up bringing out Malefic's. He ends up using Malefic World, which is a field card, and that allows him to basically, take a monster, send it to the graveyard, and summon its Malefic counterpart, which is kind of a cool, add-on that add-on, kind of a cool add-on concept that they would, I think, use later on for the actual tournaments in some unique way, maybe differentiating the rules a bit for the real tournaments. But they show that off. Like I said, they show off some new cards from Yugi, like Bond between Teacher and Student and Dark Magic Twin Burst. They show off. They show two different versions of the Paradox Dragon, if you will. So, and even the last one, basically allowing, including like, so you have, Paradox Dragon. I think it's the Black Dragon he has. It's the first one, and then then you have Malefic Truth Dragon, which is the big one. And that's like at 5,000 points, probably the most anybody has seen in a while, except with maybe the God cards and all that. But the point is, he shows off those cards, and like I said, Malefic Truth Dragon, he bonds with it, kind of like Darts did with that one monster at the end of at the conclusion of Waking the Dragons. And like I said, the battle is pretty epic. It's pretty cool. I like the ending to where, basically, of course, Yugi gives Yusei the speech of Yugi and Jaden kind of tell Yusei, hey, don't be so down. We've all probably been here. We've all basically they tell him that, hey, just because things look bleak doesn't mean they are, and they basically show him, what they mean by revealing, a couple of trap spell cards, if you will. Actually, it's a spell card that Jaden does. It's called Flute of Simmering Karibo, and then Yugi responds by bringing out Karibo to take the blast, and that's when Yugi gives Yusei the speech of everybody. It's like, it's up to you. We're all behind you, and that kind of opens up Yusei's eyes a little bit, and then he turns, and then you see his friends there, kind of smiling at him and winking at him. If of course that wink's coming from Akiza, and then he sees all these other people he's fighting for, and then it just sinks in that you're right. This is not over and everything, and then that's when they reveal the face down cards, the other face down cards, which is the Stardust Mirage, which brings back all the monsters destroyed during the phase, or during the duel. And then Jaden follows that up by, bringing out a Neo Spear, Elemental Neo Spear, which helps increase the life points of a monster on the field, that being Stardust from 25 to 50. And then Yugi does the same thing with Dark Magic Spear, and it increases Stardust from 5,000 to 10,000, which basically freaks Paradox out, and then that's when they both hit their attack, which is known as Dark Cosmic Wave, and basically not only destroy Malefic Truth Dragon, but also basically destroy Paradox, because Paradox is bonded with him, thus basically preventing any future disruption of the timeline or the future period from happening. So long story short, to make sure this review doesn't go any longer, basically they win. They all agree that maybe someday they'll duel each other, and that they all agree the bond, the friendship they made that day is going to be one that lasts through time. And then we see Yusei return back to his timeline, I'm assuming after dropping Jaden off in his, and he acknowledges what Paradox said and everything, but basically it's the future is what they make of it, and that they're going to make it a good one. And you see his friends approaching him as he's saying that, and that's pretty much how the movie ends. Overall, like I said, I thought it was a good movie. As I check something here, guys, hold on, I do apologize. But like I said, overall, I thought it was a good film. A good way to celebrate the 10th anniversary, of the franchise. And when they released Dark Side of Dimensions, everybody said that was another great way, there, to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the franchise, which I haven't yet watched all the way through, but I will. But yeah, this again, watching it back and everything, it is really, really good. I mean, like I said, if you take out the timeline headache that Dylan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything pretty much calls it, and everybody else calls it, if you take that, put that aside, this is actually a pretty good Yu-Gi-Oh! Anniversary film. And I highly recommend anybody that has yet to see it, You can find it on Tubin, and you can find it on Con TV. But if you can afford it, you can also get it, believe it or not, I think it may be on Hulu, I gotta check there. But if you can afford it, you can get it at Amazon for about $9.99, $9.99, or for high definition HDX, or you can get it from Vudu, VUDU, for $14.99, $14.99 for HDX. Or if you just want the standard, you can get the standard on Amazon for $7.99, and then the standard on Vudu for about $9.99 if you want to do that. But yeah, it is worth getting, and that's what I did. I used the Visa gift card my oldest nephew gave me to do part of that. So yeah, it is worth getting, and I do highly recommend checking it out. If you've not checked it out yet, or if you haven't seen it in a while, definitely check out Bonds Beyond Time. It's definitely worth it. I mean, the 55 minutes that it runs at goes by real fast because it's that good. But yeah, just wanted to come on here, do a bit of a review on Bonds Beyond Time, updated review, whatever you want to call it. And let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, like the video. Super chats are encouraged during the live chat during the premiere. I would really appreciate that. Like I said, like the video, comment below, check out the Teespring store. Also check me out at BW Rose's Discussions on all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. And if you're listening to the podcast on Anchor.fm, listener support is activated. And if you're listening to the podcast on places like Spotify and Amazon Music and Apple Podcasts, if they have video podcasting enabled along with audio podcasts, you have your choice there of either one or the other. Also check me out at BW Roses on VENMO for content you can't get anywhere else due to copyright maybe. Also check me out at patreon.com/BW Roses to support me with $1, $3 tier. I am considering a $5 tier for Q&As in the future, but that's still under consideration. We'll see what happens. And also check me out at Venmo at Brian-Walmer-2. But again, guys, just wanted to come on here and do this review of Yu-Gi-Oh! Bonds Beyond Time. Let me know what your thoughts were of it were down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere, which again, super chats are encouraged to, super chats, super stickers, if you will, are encouraged to be utilized during it. I would really appreciate it. And that's about it, guys. I do apologize for, and I do apologize, like I said, for some of the noise in the background or looking down here on the phone. It's dead. I gotta charge it. But because I had the security camera on, had to check on my mom because she's home. Make sure I can do this without interruption. And also I was listening to the game as well, the AFC wildcard game between Kansas City and Pittsburgh. But again, guys, let me know what your thoughts are down below. Live chat during the premiere. Super chats and stickers, super stickers that is, are encouraged doing it. We really appreciate it. And until next time, guys, I am out.